Maria Santos pushed her cleaning cart down the long hallway on the 20th floor of Meridian Tech Corporation. The wheels squeaked softly as she moved from office to office. It was 3 in the morning, and the building was quiet except for the hum of computers and air conditioning. Maria liked working at night. It was peaceful, and she could think about her college classes while she cleaned. She was 19 years old and studying business at the community college. Working as a night cleaner helped pay for her books and classes. Her father, Miguel, had worked as the head janitor in this same building for 15 years. He had gotten Maria this job when she needed money for school. Maria emptied the trash can in the first office. She wiped down the desk and cleaned the computer screen. The office belonged to someone important, but Maria did not know who. She just knew that people who worked on this floor wore expensive suits and had big offices with windows that looked out over the city. As she moved to the next office, Maria heard voices coming from down the hall. This was strange because the building was supposed to be empty at night except for security guards and cleaning staff. Maria pushed her cart quietly toward the sound. The voices were coming from the corner office at the end of the hall. The door was open just a little bit. Maria could see light coming from inside. She knew she should not listen, but something about the voices made her stop. They sounded angry and worried. "We cannot let anyone find out about this," said a man's voice. "If the news gets out, we are finished. But people are going to start asking questions," said another voice. "We cannot hide this forever." "We just need more time," the first man said. "Keep the test results quiet, tell the lab to redo them, make sure the numbers look better this time." "What about the water? People drink it every day. We will switch to bottled water slowly. No one will notice if we do it right. Just a few bottles here and there at first." Maria felt her heart beating faster. They were talking about water and test results. What was wrong with the water? She thought about all the people who worked in this building. They all drank water from the fountains and dispensers every day. The voices got quieter, and Maria heard footsteps moving toward the door. She quickly pushed her cart away and pretended to clean a nearby office. 2 men in suits walked past her without looking. They got on the elevator and left. Maria tried to focus on her work, but she could not stop thinking about what she had heard. What was wrong with the water? Why were they hiding test results? She decided to ask her father about it in the morning. The rest of the night went slowly. Maria cleaned office after office, but her mind kept going back to the conversation. She had heard people say that big companies sometimes hid bad news to protect their business, but this was about water that people drank every day. That seemed much more serious. When Maria finished her shift at 6 in the morning, she went home to the small apartment she shared with her family. Her father, Miguel, was getting ready for his day shift at the same building. Her mother, Rosa, was making breakfast, and her younger brother, Carlos, was getting ready for school. "Papa," Maria said, "I heard something strange at work last night." Miguel looked up from his coffee. "What did you hear?" Maria told him about the voices and the conversation about water and test results. Miguel's face became serious as he listened. "I have been wondering about some things too," Miguel said slowly. "Last week I found some papers in the dumpster, behind the building. They looked important, but I could not read them very well. My English is not good enough for big words." "What kind of papers?" Maria asked. "They had numbers and charts, and words about water testing. I saved them because they seemed important, but I did not know what to do with them." Maria felt her stomach drop. "Can you show me?" Miguel went to his room and came back with a folder full of papers. Maria looked at them and felt sick. The papers were water test results from the building. The numbers showed dangerous levels of chemicals in the water supply. The dates on the papers were from 3 weeks ago. "Papa, these papers show that the water in our building is not safe to drink," Maria said. "Look at these numbers. They are much higher than they should be." Miguel sat down heavily in his chair. "Are you sure?" "Yes, I am sure. I studied this in my environmental science class. These chemicals can make people very sick." Rosa stopped cooking and came over to look at the papers. "What does this mean?" she asked. "It means the company knows the water is bad, but they are not telling anyone. Maria said. "They are trying to hide it." The family sat in silence for a moment. Finally, Miguel spoke. "What should we do? If we say something, we might lose our jobs. But if we do not say something, people might get sick." "I do not know," Maria said. "But I keep thinking about all the people who drink that water every day. What if they get sick and no one tells them why?" Maria could not concentrate on her classes that day. She kept thinking about the water and the papers. She thought about her brother Carlos, who sometimes came to visit her at work and drank water from the fountains. She thought about all the workers who filled their water bottles every morning. That evening, Maria went back to work with a heavy heart. She tried to clean as usual, but everything felt different now. Every water fountain she passed reminded her of the secret she carried. Around midnight, Maria was cleaning near the executive offices when she heard the elevator doors open. She looked up and saw a tall man in an expensive suit walking toward the corner office. She recognized him from pictures in the company newsletter. It was Robert Hartwell, the CEO of Meridian Tech. Maria had never seen the CEO in person before. He was younger than she had expected, maybe in his 40s with gray hair at his temples. He looked tired as he walked to his office. Maria continued cleaning, trying not to stare. She wondered what the CEO was doing at the office so late at night. Maybe he was working on the water problem. Maybe he was trying to fix it. An hour later, Maria was cleaning the office next to the CEO's when she heard his door open. She looked up and saw him walking toward the water dispenser in the hallway. He had a coffee mug in his hand. Maria felt her heart start racing. The CEO was about to drink the contaminated water. She thought about the test results in her father's folder. She thought about the dangerous chemicals. She thought about how sick people could get. Before she could stop herself, Maria dropped her cleaning cloth and hurried toward the CEO. He was already pressing the button on the water dispenser when she reached him. "Sir," she said quietly, "please do not drink the water." Robert Hartwell turned around and looked at her with surprise. He had not noticed the young cleaning woman before. "Excuse me?" he said. Maria felt her face turn red. She could not believe. She had just spoken to the CEO. But it was too late to back down now. "Please, sir," she said again, her voice barely above a whisper. "Do not drink the water. It is not safe." Hartwell looked at her more carefully now. He saw a young woman with worried eyes and nervous hands. She was clearly frightened, but she had still chosen to speak up. "What do you mean it is not safe?" he asked. Maria looked around to make sure no one else was listening. "There are chemicals in the water, sir. Bad chemicals that can make people sick. The test results show it, but some people are trying to hide them." Hartwell set down his mug and stared at Maria. "How do you know about test results?" Maria realized she had said too much. If she told the truth, her father might get in trouble for taking papers from the dumpster. But if she lied, the CEO might not believe her. "My father found some papers," she said finally. "Papers that showed the water is not safe. I can read them because I am in college. The numbers are very bad, sir. People should not drink this water." Hartwell was quiet for a long moment. He looked at Maria's face and saw that she was telling the truth. He also saw that she was scared. "What is your name?" he asked. "Maria Santos, sir. My father is Miguel Santos. He is the head janitor here. And you are telling me this why? You could get in trouble for talking to me about company business." Maria thought about that question. She thought about her job and her father's job. She thought about her college tuition and her family's bills. Then, she thought about all the people who drank the water every day. "Because it is the right thing to do, sir," she said simply. "People have a right to know if their water is making them sick." Robert Hartwell looked at this young woman who was risking everything to warn him about something she could have easily ignored. He thought about his own children at home. He thought about all his employees who trusted the company to keep them safe. "Maria," he said quietly, "I think you and I need to have a longer conversation." Robert Hartwell led Maria to his office and closed the door. The office was huge, with floor-to-ceiling windows that showed the city lights below. Maria had never been inside the CEO's office before. She felt very small sitting in the leather chair across from his big desk. "Tell me everything," Hartwell said. "Start from the beginning." Maria took a deep breath. She told him about hearing the conversation the night before. She explained how her father had found the papers in the dumpster. She described what the test results showed about the water. "My father has worked here for 15 years, Maria said. "He is a good worker and he cares about this building. When he found those papers, he knew something was wrong, but he could not read them well enough to understand." "Where are these papers now?" Hartwell asked. "At home. My father saved them because he thought they might be important." Hartwell leaned back in his chair. He looked tired and worried. "Maria, what you are telling me is very serious. If the water in this building really is contaminated, we have a big problem." "I know, sir. That is why I had to tell you. But you understand that some people in this company might not want this information to get out? You could be putting yourself and your father in danger by talking to me." Maria nodded. She had thought about that all day. "I know, sir. But my little brother Carlos sometimes comes here after school to wait for me. He drinks water from the fountains. What if he gets sick? What if everyone gets sick?" Hartwell studied Maria's face. He could see that she was scared, but she was also determined. "Tell me about these papers. What exactly did they say?" Maria explained what she had learned in her environmental science class. She described the different chemicals that were listed in the test results. She told him how the levels were much higher than what was safe for people to drink. "The papers were dated 3 weeks ago," Maria said. "But my father found them just last week. Someone threw them away, probably by mistake." "Who signed the papers?" Hartwell asked. "I do not remember the name exactly, but it was someone from the facilities department." Hartwell knew that the facilities department reported to the CFO, Thomas Morrison. Morrison had been with the company for 10 years and was responsible for all building operations. If there was a water contamination problem, Morrison would definitely know about it. "Maria, I need you to bring those papers to me tomorrow night. Can you do that?" "Yes, sir. But what if someone sees me giving them to you?" "We will be careful. Meet me in the parking garage at midnight. Level B3, near the elevators. There are no security cameras there." Maria agreed, even though the thought of meeting the CEO in a dark parking garage made her nervous. But she trusted him. He seemed like a good man who really cared about doing the right thing. "Sir," Maria said, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Did you know about the water problem before tonight?" Hartwell shook his head. "No, I did not, and that is what worries me. If there really is a contamination problem, someone has been hiding it from me." After Maria left, Hartwell sat alone in his office thinking. If what Maria said was true, then people in his own company were covering up a serious health hazard. He thought about his 800 employees who came to work every day and trusted the company to provide a safe workplace. The next morning, Hartwell tried to act normal at work. He attended his usual meetings and reviewed reports. But he kept thinking about Maria's warning. He noticed things he had never paid attention to before. How many people filled water bottles at the fountains? How many used the water dispensers in their offices? During lunch, Hartwell decided to do some investigating. He went down to the facilities department on the 5th floor. The department manager, David Chen, looked surprised to see the CEO. "Mr. Hartwell, what brings you down here?" "Just wanted to check on how things are running," Hartwell said casually. "Any issues I should know about?" Chen seemed nervous. "No, sir. Everything is fine. All systems running normally." "What about the water system? Any problems there?" Chen's face went pale. "Water system? No. No problems with water. Everything is working perfectly." Hartwell noticed that Chen would not look him in the eye. "When was the last time we had the water tested?" "Oh, we test it regularly. Very regularly. All tests come back fine." "Can you show me the recent test results?" Chen started sweating. "Well, I would have to find them. They might be filed away somewhere. I could get them for you later." Hartwell knew that Chen was lying. In a well-run facilities department, water test results would be easy to find. They would be kept in a file that any manager could access quickly. That is okay, Hartwell said. Just email them to me when you find them. Yes, sir. I will do that right away. But Hartwell knew the email would never come. Or if it did come, the test results would be fake. That evening, Maria went home and told her father about the meeting with the CEO. Miguel was worried about getting involved, but he agreed that they had to do the right thing. If Mr. Hartwell is a good man, he will protect us, Miguel said. If he is not a good man, we are in trouble either way. Rosa was making dinner when Carlos came home from school. He looked tired and said his stomach hurt. Did you eat something bad at school? Rosa asked. No, Mama. I just feel sick. My head hurts too. Maria looked at her little brother with new worry. Carlos often came to the Meridian building after school. He would do his homework in the lobby while waiting for Maria to finish work. And he always drank water from the fountains there. Carlos, Maria said, when you come to visit me at work, do you drink water from the fountains? Yes, always. The water there tastes better than at school. Maria felt sick. Her own brother might already be getting poisoned by the contaminated water. That night at work, Maria was too nervous to concentrate on cleaning. She kept looking at the clock, waiting for midnight. Finally, at 11:55, she took the folder of papers and went down to the parking garage. The garage was dark and empty. Maria waited by the elevators on level B3, just as Hartwell had instructed. She heard footsteps and saw the CEO walking toward her. Did you bring the papers? He asked quietly. Yes, sir. Maria handed him the folder. Hartwell opened the folder and used his phone's flashlight to read the papers. As he read, his face became more and more serious. Maria, these results are even worse than you described. The contamination levels are extremely dangerous. People could get very sick from drinking this water. My little brother has been drinking water from the building fountains, Maria said. He came home sick today. Hartwell looked up from the papers. We need to get him to a doctor, and we need to warn everyone else immediately. But sir, what about the people who are trying to hide this, the ones I heard talking? I have a pretty good idea who they are, Hartwell said grimly, and I am going to find out exactly what they know and when they knew it. Hartwell studied the papers more carefully. The test results were signed by someone named Dr. Jennifer Walsh from Environmental Testing Labs. The results were addressed to Thomas Morrison, the CFO. Maria, these papers show that Morrison has known about this contamination. For at least 3 weeks, he has been covering it up. What are you going to do? First, I am going to confront Morrison. Then I am going to shut down all the water systems in the building and bring in bottled water for everyone. After that, I'm going to find out how this contamination happened and why it was covered up. What about my father and me? Will we lose our jobs? Hartwell looked at Maria with respect. You and your father are heroes. You could have stayed quiet and protected yourselves, but you chose to protect everyone else instead. I will make sure you are both safe. There is something else, Maria said. The men I heard talking mentioned bribing someone. They said something about making sure the inspectors do not find anything. This made Hartwell even angrier. Not only were his own employees covering up a health hazard, but they were also bribing government officials. Maria, I need you to write down everything you remember from that conversation, every word you can recall. It might be important evidence later. Evidence for what? For the police investigation that is going to happen when this gets out. Maria had not thought about police being involved. This was bigger than just a company problem. People could go to jail for hiding something this serious. Sir, I am scared, Maria admitted. I understand. But you did the right thing by coming to me. Now we are going to do the right thing together. Hartwell walked Maria back to her car to make sure she got there safely. As he watched her drive away, he thought about what he had to do next. He had built Meridian Tech from a small startup into a major corporation. He had always tried to run an honest business and treat his employees well. But now he discovered that some of his most trusted executives had been lying to him and putting people's lives at risk. Back in his office, Hartwell looked at the test results again. The contamination was caused by industrial chemicals that had leaked into the building's water supply. The levels were high enough to cause serious illness, especially with long-term exposure. Hartwell thought about all his employees who had been drinking this water for weeks. He thought about their families. He thought about visitors to the building, who had no idea they were being exposed to dangerous chemicals. He picked up his phone and called his assistant, even though it was after midnight. "Sarah, I need you to come in early tomorrow." The next morning, Robert Hartwell arrived at his office earlier than usual. He had barely slept, spending most of the night thinking about the contaminated water and what he needed to do. The test results Maria had shown him were serious enough to make people very sick, and he could not let that happen. At exactly 8 o'clock, Hartwell called Thomas Morrison, his CFO, and asked him to come to his office immediately. Morrison had been with the company for 10 years and was someone Hartwell had trusted completely. That trust was about to be tested. Morrison knocked on the door and entered with his usual confident smile. "Good morning, Robert. You wanted to see me?" "Sit down, Tom." Hartwell's voice was cold and serious. Morrison's smile faded as he took a seat. "Tom, I want you to tell me about the water testing results from 3 weeks ago." Morrison's face went pale. He opened his mouth to speak, then closed it again. "Water testing? I'm not sure what you mean." Hartwell pulled out the folder Maria had given him and spread the papers across his desk. "These water testing results, Tom. The ones that show dangerous chemical contamination in our building's water supply. The ones addressed to you personally." Morrison stared at the papers with horror. "Where did you get those?" "That doesn't matter. What matters is that you've known about this contamination for 3 weeks and you haven't told me. Explain yourself." Morrison sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, he spoke in a quiet voice. "Robert, if this gets out, it will destroy the company. We're in the middle of the biggest deal in our history. The merger with Patterson Industries is worth $200 million. If they find out about this water problem, they'll walk away." "So you decided to cover it up?" "I decided to buy us time to fix it quietly. We were going to clean up the contamination and switch to bottled water gradually. No one would have gotten hurt." Hartwell slammed his hand on the desk. "No one would have gotten hurt? Tom, people have been drinking poisoned water for weeks. We have 800 employees in this building. Some of them might already be sick. We don't know that anyone is actually sick. We don't know that they're not sick either, and we should have found out immediately by warning everyone and offering medical testing." Morrison looked desperate. "Robert, please think about this carefully. If we go public now, we'll face massive lawsuits. The EPA will shut us down. The media will destroy our reputation. We could lose everything. We could lose everything anyway if people start dying from water poisoning." Hartwell studied Morrison's face and realized something terrible. "Tom, how long have you really known about this? These test results are from 3 weeks ago, but when did the contamination actually start?" Morrison could not meet his eyes. "The leak started about 2 months ago." 2 months? Hartwell could barely control his anger. "You've known about poisoned water for 2 months and said nothing? We thought we could fix it quickly. But the leak was harder to repair than we expected. It's coming from the chemical storage area in the basement. Some of the containers started leaking, and the chemicals seeped into the water pipes." "What chemicals exactly?" Morrison pulled out a file from his briefcase. "Mostly industrial solvents and cleaning chemicals, some heavy metals. The levels are high, but we don't think anyone has been exposed long enough to get seriously ill." Hartwell looked at the file and felt sick. The contamination was even worse than the papers Maria had shown him. There were chemicals listed that could cause cancer, birth defects, and organ damage. "Tom, who else knows about this?" "David Chen, in facilities management. Dr. Walsh at the testing lab, and—" Morrison hesitated. "And who?" "We had to pay the city water inspector to delay his report. Otherwise, he would have shut down the building immediately." Hartwell could not believe what he was hearing. Not only had his executives covered up a health hazard, but they had also bribed a government official. "How much did you pay him?" $50,000. We told him we needed time to evacuate the building safely and find temporary office space for everyone." "But you weren't planning to evacuate at all, were you?" Morrison shook his head. "We thought we could fix everything before anyone noticed." Hartwell stood up and walked to the window. Below, he could see employees arriving for work, carrying coffee cups and water bottles. They had no idea they were walking into a contaminated building. Tom, I want you to understand something very clearly. As of right now, this cover-up is over. We are going to shut down all water systems in this building immediately. We are going to provide bottled water for everyone. We are going to offer medical testing to all employees. And we are going to report this contamination to the proper authorities. Robert, please reconsider. We can still handle this quietly. No, we cannot. And I'll tell you why. Last night, a 19-year-old cleaning woman risked her job to warn me about this contamination. She could have stayed quiet and protected herself, but she chose to protect everyone else instead. She showed more courage and integrity in 5 minutes than you've shown in 2 months. Morrison looked confused. A cleaning woman? How did she know about the test results? Her father found the papers you threw away. They brought them to me because they were worried about people getting sick. They did what you should have done weeks ago. Robert, if a janitor has those papers, who else might know? We could have... A leak. Hartwell stared at Morrison with disgust. Tom, we don't have a leak, we have a cover-up, and it ends now. Hartwell picked up his phone and called his assistant. Sarah, I need you to do several things immediately. First, call our facilities team and tell them to shut down every water fountain and dispenser in the building. Second, call a bottled water company and order emergency delivery for 800 people. Third, schedule an all-hands meeting for 10 o'clock this morning. Yes, sir. Should I tell people what the meeting is about? Tell them it's an important health and safety announcement. After hanging up, Hartwell turned back to Morrison. You have 2 choices, Tom. You can cooperate fully with fixing this mess, or you can clean out your office. Which is it going to be? Morrison looked defeated. I'll cooperate. But Robert, you need to understand the financial implications. The lawsuits alone could bankrupt us, and if the merger falls through, we'll have to lay off hundreds of people. Then, we'll deal with those problems when they come. But we're not going to deal with them by poisoning our own employees. Meanwhile, Maria was at home worrying about what would happen next. She had not slept well either, thinking about the meeting with Hartwell and wondering if she had done the right thing. Her brother Carlos was still feeling sick, and her parents were talking about taking him to the doctor. Maria, her father Miguel said, "Are you sure Mr. Hartwell will protect us? If the company finds out we took those papers, we could be in big trouble." I think he's a good man, Papa. He seemed really concerned about the water problem. But companies don't always do the right thing, even when they have good leaders. Sometimes money is more important than people. Maria's mother, Rosa, was listening to their conversation. What if we all get sick from working in that building? What if Carlos is already sick from drinking that water? These were the same questions that had kept Maria awake all night. She thought about all the employees who had been exposed to the contaminated water. She thought about the visitors and delivery people who drank from the fountains. She thought about her own family's future if they lost their jobs. At 9 o'clock, Maria's phone rang. It was an unknown number, but she answered it anyway. Hello? Maria, this is Robert Hartwell. I want you to know that we are shutting down all the water systems in the building this morning. We are also providing bottled water for everyone and offering medical testing. Maria felt relief wash over her. Thank you, Mr. Hartwell. My brother is sick and we think it might be from the water. Bring him to our company doctor today. We will pay for all medical expenses related to this contamination. And Maria, I want you and your father to know that your jobs are safe. What you did took courage, and I respect that. What about the people who were covering it up? They will face consequences, I promise you that. After the call, Maria felt better but still worried. She knew that doing the right thing was not always easy, and there would probably be more challenges ahead. Back at Meridian Tech, Hartwell was preparing for the most difficult announcement of his career. He had to tell 800 employees that they had been exposed to contaminated water and that the company had known about it for weeks. He had to explain why they had not been warned immediately, and he had to take responsibility for a cover-up that he had not even known about. At 10 o'clock, employees gathered in the main conference hall. Many were carrying water bottles or coffee cups. unaware that they had been drinking poisoned water. For weeks, the room was filled with confused conversation as people wondered what the emergency meeting was about. Hartwell took the stage and looked out at all the faces in the audience. These were people who had trusted him to provide a safe workplace. He had failed them, and now he had to make it right. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "I have some very serious news to share with you. We have discovered that the water in our building has been contaminated with industrial chemicals. As of this morning, all water systems have been shut down, and we are providing bottled water for everyone." In the days following the announcement, Robert Hartwell discovered that the water contamination was much worse than anyone had initially realized. The company's medical team began testing employees, and the results were alarming. 23. People showed signs of chemical exposure, including liver problems, kidney issues, and respiratory symptoms. Dr. Sarah Kim, the company's chief medical officer, brought the test results to Hartwell's office with a grim expression on her face. "Robert, we have a serious problem," she said, spreading the medical files across his desk. "These people have been poisoned. Some of them may have permanent health damage." Hartwell looked at the files with growing horror. The affected employees included people from every department and every age group. One was a pregnant woman whose baby might be at risk. Another was a 60-year-old man whose kidneys were already showing signs of damage. "How bad is it, Sarah?" "It's bad. These chemicals are cumulative, which means they build up in the body over time. People who have worked here the longest are showing the worst symptoms, and we still don't know the full extent of the damage because some health problems might not show up for months or even years. What about treatment? Can we help them? We can treat some symptoms, but there's no way to remove these chemicals from their bodies once they're absorbed. The best we can do is stop further exposure and monitor their health carefully." Hartwell felt sick as he realized the full scope of what had happened. His own employees had been slowly poisoned while working, at jobs they thought were safe. And it had all been covered up by people he had trusted. "Sarah, I want you to contact the best specialist in the country. I don't care what it costs. We are going to provide the best possible medical care for every affected employee." "That could be extremely expensive, Robert. We're talking about long-term treatment for potentially dozens of people. I don't care about the cost. These people were hurt because we failed to protect them. But the medical costs were just the beginning of Hartwell's problems. His lawyer, Jennifer Walsh, came to see him with even worse news. "Robert, we need to talk about the legal implications of this situation," she said. "The EPA is launching a full investigation. The FBI is looking into the bribery allegations, and we already have 15 employees who have filed lawsuits against the company. How bad could the lawsuits get?" "Very bad. If we're found liable for knowingly exposing employees to toxic chemicals, we could be looking at hundreds of millions of dollars in damages. And that's just the beginning. The EPA could fine us up to $50 million for environmental violations. The merger with Patterson Industries has already been canceled. They don't want anything to do with a company facing this kind of legal trouble." Hartwell sat in his chair, feeling the weight of the crisis pressing down on him. The company he had spent 20 years building was falling apart in a matter of days. "Jennifer, what are our options?" "Honestly, not many good ones. We could try to settle the lawsuits quickly and quietly, but that would basically be admitting guilt. We could fight them in court, but that would take years and cost millions in legal fees. Either way, the company's reputation is destroyed. What about bankruptcy? That's definitely a possibility. If we can't pay the damages and fines, we might have no choice but to declare bankruptcy and liquidate the company." Hartwell thought about his 800 employees who were depending on their jobs to support their families. If Meridian Tech went bankrupt, all of them would be out of work. The people who had been poisoned would lose their health insurance, just when they needed it most. Meanwhile, Maria Santos was dealing with her own crisis. Her brother Carlos had been tested by the company doctor and showed signs of chemical exposure. The doctor said Carlos would probably be okay, but he needed to be monitored carefully for the next several years. "What does this mean for Carlos's future?" Maria asked Dr. Kim during their appointment. "It means we need to watch for any signs of health problems as he grows up. The chemicals he was exposed to could potentially cause issues with his liver, kidneys, or nervous system. But children are often more resilient than adults, so there's a good chance he'll be fine. Maria felt angry and scared. Her little brother had been hurt because adults had made bad decisions and covered them up. Carlos had done nothing wrong except drink water from a fountain. Will the company pay for Carlos's medical care? Yes, Mr. Hartwell has promised to pay all medical expenses for anyone affected by the contamination. That includes family members. But Maria was also worried about her family's financial future. Even though Hartwell had promised that she and her father would keep their jobs, Maria wondered if there would be any jobs left if the company went bankrupt. That evening, Maria and her father sat in their kitchen discussing what they should do. "Papa, I heard some employees talking about finding new jobs," Maria said. "They think the company might close down." Miguel nodded sadly. "I have worked here for 15 years. This building has been like a second home to me. But now I am not sure if there will be a company left to work for. Maybe we should look for other jobs too, just in case." "Maybe. But it will be hard to find work that pays as well as this job. And with Carlos needing medical care, we need good health insurance." Rosa joined the conversation from the living room. "I heard on the news that other companies are involved in this water problem. The testing company that did the fake reports, the city inspector who took money to stay quiet. This is bigger than just Meridian Tech." She was right. The FBI investigation was expanding to include environmental testing labs, which had allegedly falsified water test results for multiple companies. The city water inspector, James Rodriguez, had been arrested for accepting bribes, and investigators were looking into whether other buildings in the city might have similar contamination problems. The story had become national news, with reporters camping outside the Meridian Tech building and interviewing employees as they came and went. Maria had been approached by several reporters who wanted to interview the whistleblower who exposed the cover-up, but she had refused to talk to them. "I just want this to be over," Maria told her father. "I just want Carlos to be healthy and our family to be safe. I know, mija. But sometimes doing the right thing is not easy, and sometimes it takes a long time to see if it was worth it." Back at Meridian Tech, Hartwell was facing pressure from all sides. His remaining executives were urging him to declare bankruptcy and walk away from the company's debts. His lawyers were telling him to stop admitting responsibility publicly because it would hurt them in court. His investors were demanding that he resign and let someone else handle the crisis. But Hartwell kept thinking about Maria Santos and the courage she had shown in warning him about the contaminated water. She had risked everything to do the right thing, and now he had to decide whether he would do the same. Thomas Morrison, the former CFO who had been fired for his role in the cover-up, came to see Hartwell one last time. Morrison was facing criminal charges for bribery and endangering public health, but he still believed the cover-up had been the right decision. "Robert, you're making a mistake by taking responsibility for this," Morrison said. "You should blame everything on me and Chen. Say that we acted without your knowledge and you fired us as soon as you found out. You could save the company and your own reputation. And what about the employees who got poisoned? What about their families? That's what insurance is for. Let the insurance companies pay the medical costs and damages. That's why we pay premiums." Hartwell looked at Morrison with disgust. "Tom, these are real people with real lives. They trusted us to provide a safe workplace, and we failed them. I'm not going to abandon them now just to protect myself. You're being naive, Robert. In business, sometimes you have to make hard choices. Sometimes good people get hurt, and that's just the cost of doing business." "No, Tom. That's not the cost of doing business. That's the cost of being a coward." Morrison left, and Hartwell sat alone in his office thinking about the choices ahead of him. He could try to save the company by minimizing his responsibility and fighting the lawsuits, or he could accept full responsibility and focus on helping the people who had been hurt, even if it meant losing everything. His phone rang and his assistant told him that Maria Santos was in the lobby asking to see him. "Send her up," Hartwell said. A few minutes later, Maria knocked on his door. She looked tired and worried, but she still had the same determined expression she had worn the night she warned him about the water. "Mr. Hartwell, I wanted to thank you for paying for Carlos's medical care," she said. "The doctors say he should be okay, but it will take time to know for sure. Maria, I'm so sorry that your brother was hurt. If I had known about the contamination sooner, I could have prevented it. But you did not know, sir. The people who knew chose to hide it from you. Hartwell was surprised by her response. You don't blame me for what happened? I blame the people who covered it up. You stopped it as soon as you found out. That makes you different from them. Maria, I have to ask you something. If you had known how much trouble this would cause, would you still have warned me about the water? Maria thought about that question for a moment. 2 weeks after the contamination was revealed, Robert Hartwell made a decision that surprised everyone. Instead of trying to distance himself from the scandal, he asked Maria Santos and her father Miguel to help him gather more evidence about the cover-up. I need your help, Hartwell told them during a meeting in his office. The FBI is investigating, but they need more evidence to build strong cases against the people responsible. You two have access to areas of the building that I don't, and you notice things that executives might miss. Maria was nervous about getting more involved. Mr. Hartwell, we already gave you the papers we found. What more can we do? There might be more evidence hidden in the building. Morrison and Chen might have hidden documents or electronic files that could prove how long this cover-up really went on. I need people I can trust to help me find that evidence. Miguel spoke up for the first time. Mr. Hartwell, with respect, why should we trust you? How do we know you will not blame us if this gets worse? It was a fair question. Hartwell had been thinking about it himself. Miguel, you have every right to be suspicious, but I want you to know that I am prepared to lose everything to make this right. My reputation, my company, my personal fortune. The only thing I care about now is helping the people who were hurt and making sure the truth comes out. What kind of evidence are you looking for? Maria asked. Email records, financial documents, meeting notes. Anything that shows when Morrison and Chen first knew about the contamination and what they did to hide it. The more evidence we have, the stronger the case against them will be. Maria thought about it. She was scared of getting in more trouble, but she was also angry about what had happened to Carlos and the other victims. What would we have to do? During your cleaning shifts, you would look for any documents or computer files that might be evidence. You would also watch for suspicious behavior from other employees who might be involved in the cover-up. Miguel was still doubtful. This sounds very dangerous. What if we get caught? What if someone tries to hurt us? I've arranged for security guards to keep an eye on you during your shifts, and I've set up a special phone number that you can call if you feel threatened or unsafe. Maria looked at her father. They both knew this was a big decision. Getting more involved could put their family at greater risk, but it could also help ensure that justice was done. If we help you, Maria said, will you promise to protect our family no matter what happens to the company? Yes, I promise. And I'll put that promise in writing. That night, Maria and Miguel began their new role as secret investigators. Working together during the night shift, they searched through offices and files that had been abandoned when Morrison and Chen were fired. In Morrison's old office, Maria found a hidden folder in his desk drawer. The folder contained emails between Morrison and several city officials, including the water inspector who had been bribed. The emails showed that the bribery had been going on for months, not just during the water contamination crisis. Papa, look at this, Maria whispered, showing Miguel the emails. They were paying city inspectors to ignore problems with the heating system, the electrical wiring, and the elevator safety checks too. This is much bigger than just the water problem, Miguel replied. They were covering up safety violations all over the building. Meanwhile, Miguel used his master keys to access storage areas that other employees rarely visited. In a basement storage room, he found boxes of old invoices and receipts. Many of them were for chemical disposal services that had never actually been performed. Maria, come look at this, Miguel called quietly. The company was supposed to have these chemicals disposed of safely, but they never paid the disposal companies. That means the chemicals were just left in the basement where they could leak. The evidence they were gathering painted a picture of systematic corruption and negligence. Morrison and Chen had not just covered up one water contamination incident. They had been cutting corners on safety and environmental compliance for years, putting employees and the community at risk. But their investigation was not going unnoticed. David Chen, the former facilities manager, was still in contact with some current employees who reported to him about unusual activity in the building. "Someone is going through Morrison's old office," Chen told his lawyer during a phone call that Maria accidentally overheard while cleaning nearby. "They're looking for documents. We need to make sure anything incriminating gets destroyed." "It's too late for that," the lawyer replied. "The FBI has already seized most of the official records. Your best bet is to cooperate with the investigation and hope for a plea deal." "I'm not going to prison for this. Morrison made all the decisions. I was just following orders." Maria quickly texted Hartwell about the conversation. He immediately called the FBI to report that Chen might be trying to destroy evidence or intimidate witnesses. The next day, FBI agents interviewed Maria and Miguel about what they had heard and found. Agent Lisa Park, who was leading the investigation, was impressed by their courage and thoroughness. "You two have provided some of the most important evidence in this case," Agent Park told them. "The documents you found prove that this corruption goes back years and involves multiple crimes." "What will happen to the people who were responsible?" Maria asked. "Morrison and Chen will likely face federal charges for bribery, environmental crimes, and endangering public health. They could go to prison for many years. The city officials who took bribes will also face charges." "What about the company? Will Meridian Tech survive?" "That depends on Mr. Hartwell and how he handles the next few months. The company will face heavy fines and lawsuits, but it might survive if he continues to cooperate and take responsibility." As the investigation continued, Maria and Miguel discovered more evidence of the cover-up. They found records showing that Morrison had known about chemical leaks in the basement for over a year. They found emails proving that Chen had falsified safety inspection reports. They even found evidence that both men had received bonuses for cost savings that were actually the result of skipping required safety procedures. But the most shocking discovery came when Miguel found a hidden safe in Chen's old office. Inside the safe were cash payments that had been prepared for bribing additional city officials. "Mr. Hartwell," Maria said during one of their regular meetings, "we found $50,000 in cash hidden in Chen's office. It looks like they were planning to bribe more people." Hartwell shook his head in disgust. "How did I not know this was happening in my own company?" "Maybe because you trusted them to do their jobs honestly," Miguel said. "Good leaders have to trust their people. You cannot watch everyone all the time." "But I should have asked more questions. I should have insisted on seeing safety reports and inspection results myself." Maria had been thinking about this too. "Mr. Hartwell, maybe the problem was not just with Morrison and Chen. Maybe the problem was that the company was too focused on making money and not focused enough on keeping people safe." It was a difficult truth for Hartwell to hear, but he knew Maria was right. Meridian Tech had grown rapidly over the years, and somewhere along the way, profits had become more important than people. "You're right, Maria. If the company survives this crisis, things are going to be very different. Employee safety and environmental responsibility will be our top priorities, even if it means making less money." "How will you make sure this never happens again?" "By creating new systems that make it impossible to hide safety problems. Every safety report will be reviewed by multiple people. Every chemical disposal will be verified by independent inspectors. And there will be a special committee of employees, including janitors and cleaning staff, who can report safety concerns directly to me without going through managers." Miguel was interested in this idea. "You would listen to janitors and cleaning people?" "Absolutely. You see everything that happens in this building. You know when things are not right. If I had been listening to people like you from the beginning, this contamination might never have happened." As their investigation continued, Maria and Miguel began to feel like they were part of something important. They were not just employees anymore. They were partners in rebuilding the company and making sure it operated with integrity. But they also knew that their work was dangerous. Chen had been released on bail while awaiting trial, and he was angry about the evidence that had been found against him. He blamed Maria and Miguel for his legal troubles and had been asking questions about their families. Maria, Agent Park warned during one of their meetings, We have reason to believe that Chen might try to intimidate you or your family. We're going to provide protection, but you need to be very careful. What kind of protection? Unmarked police cars will watch your home and the building where you work. We'll also give you a special phone that connects directly to our emergency response team. Maria felt scared but also determined. Agent Park, will our evidence be enough to convict Morrison and Chen? With what you've found, plus the testimony from other witnesses, we have very strong cases against both of them. They will almost certainly go to prison. Good. What they did was wrong, and they should pay for it. 3 weeks after Maria and Miguel began their secret investigation, the situation at Meridian Tech took a dangerous turn. David Chen, the former facilities manager who was out on bail, became increasingly desperate as the FBI built a stronger case against him. Chen had been watching the building and noticed that Maria and Miguel were staying late and accessing areas they normally wouldn't visit during their cleaning shifts. He correctly guessed that they were the ones providing evidence to the authorities. On a Thursday night, Chen confronted Miguel in the parking garage as he was leaving work. "I know what you're doing, old man," Chen said, blocking Miguel's path to his car. "You and your daughter are trying to destroy my life." Miguel tried to stay calm. "I do not know what you are talking about." "Don't lie to me. You're the ones who found those documents. You're working with the FBI to frame me for Morrison's crimes." "No one is framing you. The papers show what really happened." Chen stepped closer, his voice becoming threatening. "I have children too, Miguel. I have a family to protect. If you don't stop helping the FBI, bad things might happen to your family." Miguel felt afraid, but he also felt angry. "Are you threatening my family? I'm warning you. Drop this investigation or you'll regret it." Miguel immediately called the emergency number Agent Park had given him. Within minutes, FBI agents and security guards surrounded the parking garage, but Chen had already left. "This proves that Chen knows you're helping us," Agent Park told Miguel and Maria the next day. "It also means he's getting desperate, which makes him more dangerous." "What should we do?" Maria asked. "We're going to move faster. We need to get you and your family into protective custody while we finish building the case." But Maria shook her head. "Agent Park, if we disappear now, Chen and Morrison might have time to destroy more evidence or threaten other witnesses. We need to finish what we started. Maria, your safety is more important than this investigation." "But what about all the employees who are still sick? What about other people who might get hurt if we don't expose this corruption completely?" Miguel looked at his daughter with pride and concern. "Maria, this man threatened our family. Maybe we should listen to Agent Park." "Papa, remember what you taught me when I was little? You said that when something is right, it's right, even if it's scary. This is right." Agent Park admired Maria's courage, but she was also worried about the family's safety. "If you insist on continuing, we'll have to increase security dramatically. There will be agents watching your home 24 hours a day, and you'll both wear protective devices while working." "We understand," Maria said. "But we want to finish this." The next few days were tense as Maria and Miguel continued their investigation under heavy security. They found additional evidence that Morrison had been planning to expand the cover-up to other buildings owned by Meridian Tech. They also discovered that Chen had been stealing money from the facility's budget to pay for the bribes. But on Monday morning, Maria received a phone call that changed everything. It was from Dr. Kim, the company medical officer. "Maria, I need you to come in immediately. We found something in Carlos's latest blood tests." Maria felt her heart stop. "Is he okay? Is it getting worse? Just come in as soon as you can. Bring your parents." At the medical office, Dr. Kim delivered devastating news. Carlos's blood tests showed that the chemical exposure had damaged his kidneys more severely than they had initially realized. He would need specialized treatment and possibly a kidney transplant in the future. "How could this happen?" Rosa asked, crying. "You said he would probably be okay." "I'm sorry. The damage from these chemicals can be progressive, meaning it gets worse over time. Carlos will need ongoing treatment for the rest of his life." Maria felt overwhelmed with guilt and anger. Her little brother was facing a lifetime of health problems because adults had chosen money over safety. And now those same adults were threatening her family to try to escape justice. Dr. Kim, how much will Carlos's treatment cost? Hundreds of thousands of dollars over his lifetime, possibly millions if he needs a transplant. Maria thought about Hartwell's promise to pay for medical expenses, but she also knew that the company might go bankrupt and be unable to pay anything. That afternoon, Maria made a decision that surprised everyone. She called Sarah Chen, a reporter from the local news station who had been trying to interview her for weeks. "Ms. Chen, this is Maria Santos. I'm ready to tell my story." "Maria, that's wonderful. When can we meet?" "Tonight. But I want to do more than just an interview. I want to hold a press conference and tell the whole truth about what happened at Meridian Tech." Agent Park was not happy about Maria's decision. "Maria, going public right now could interfere with our investigation. It could also put you in more danger. Agent Park, my brother is going to need expensive medical treatment for the rest of his life. The only way to make sure he gets that treatment is to make sure this story doesn't get buried or forgotten. People need to know what really happened. But Chen and Morrison might try to hurt you if you expose them publicly. They already threatened us. At least if I go public, they won't be able to make us disappear without people asking questions." Hartwell supported Maria's decision, even though his lawyers advised against it. "Maria has the right to tell her story," he told Agent Park. "And frankly, the public has a right to know how this cover-up happened." The press conference was scheduled for Friday evening at the local community center. Maria spent the week preparing her statement with help from a lawyer provided by Hartwell. But on Thursday night, Maria discovered that Chen and Morrison were planning to destroy evidence before she could go public with her story. While cleaning Morrison's old office one more time, Maria overheard a phone conversation between Morrison and someone she didn't recognize. "The girl is planning a press conference tomorrow," Morrison said. "If she tells everything she knows, we're finished." "Can you stop her?" the other voice asked. "Chen thinks he can scare her off, but I think it's too late for that. We need to focus on destroying the evidence she hasn't found yet." "What evidence?" "The backup computer files from my home office. The offshore bank accounts where we kept the extra bribe money. The contracts with the fake chemical disposal companies." Maria quickly texted this information to Agent Park, who immediately organized raids on Morrison's home and several other locations. But Morrison realized that someone was listening to his phone calls. He called Chen with a new plan. "The family is the problem," Morrison told Chen. "If something happens to them before the press conference, the investigation falls apart." "What do you mean something happens to them?" "An accident, a break-in gone wrong, something that looks random but eliminates the witnesses." Maria heard enough to realize that her family was in immediate danger. She called Agent Park while running toward the exit. "Agent Park, they're planning to hurt my family tonight. You need to get to my house right now. We're already on our way. Get out of the building immediately and go to the safe house we discussed." But Maria was too worried about her family to think about her own safety. Instead of going to the safe house, she drove home as fast as she could. When she arrived, she saw two strange cars parked near her apartment building. FBI agents were already there, but they were keeping their distance to avoid alerting the attackers. Maria called Agent Park. "I'm here, what's happening?" "Two men broke into your apartment. Your family is safe, and we evacuated them an hour ago when we got your warning. But the attackers don't know the apartment is empty." "Who are they?" "We think Morrison hired them. We're waiting for them to leave so we can arrest them without a shootout in your neighborhood." Maria watched from a distance as the FBI arrested two men who came out of her apartment building. They had been planning to make it look like a robbery, but they were carrying weapons that could have killed her entire family. "Maria," Agent Park said after the arrest, "if you hadn't overheard that phone call and warned us, your family might be dead right now." Maria felt sick thinking about how close they had come to disaster, but she also felt more determined than ever to expose the truth. "Agent Park, I'm still doing the press conference tomorrow. Morrison and Chen tried to kill my family to keep me quiet. That proves how guilty they are and how important it is for people to know the truth. Are you sure? We can postpone it until after they're arrested." "No. Every day we wait gives them more time to destroy evidence or hurt other people. The press. Conference happens tomorrow. The next evening, Maria stood in front of dozens of reporters and television cameras at the community center. Her parents sat in the front row along with Carlos, who was pale but determined to support his sister. Hartwell was also there, even though his lawyers had advised him to stay away. "I want people to see that the company supports Maria's courage," he had told them. "My name is Maria Santos," she began, her voice steady despite her nervousness. "3 months ago, I was just a college student working as a night cleaner to pay for my education. Today, I am here to tell you about the worst corporate cover-up in our city's history." For the next hour, Maria told the complete story of the water contamination, the cover-up, the bribes, and the threats against her family. She showed copies of the documents she and her father had found. Maria Santos's press conference sent shockwaves throughout the business world and beyond. Within 24 hours, the story was front-page news in major newspapers across the country. The video of Maria's testimony went viral on social media, with millions of people sharing her story and praising her courage. But the national attention also brought intense scrutiny to Meridian Tech and Robert Hartwell. Federal investigators expanded their probe, and Congress announced hearings into corporate cover-ups in the technology industry. The company's stock price crashed, and several major clients canceled their contracts. "Robert, we need to talk," said Margaret Foster, the chairwoman of Meridian Tech's board of directors. She had called an emergency board meeting the day after Maria's press conference. Hartwell sat at the conference table facing 7 board members, most of whom looked angry and worried. These were people who had invested millions of dollars in NAR, the company, and now faced losing everything. "The board has lost confidence in your leadership," Foster continued. "This contamination scandal happened on your watch. The cover-up involved your most trusted executives, and now we're facing lawsuits that could bankrupt the company. Margaret, I understand your concerns, but I discovered this cover-up at the same time you did. Morrison and Chen were hiding it from me just like they were hiding it from everyone else." Board member David Park spoke up. "That's exactly the problem, Robert. How could you not know what was happening in your own company? Either you're incompetent or you're lying about your involvement." "I'm not lying. And the FBI investigation will prove that I had no knowledge of the contamination until Maria Santos warned me about it. But your handling of the crisis has been disastrous," added board member Susan Walsh. "You should have minimized the company's liability, not taken full responsibility for everything. Your press conferences and public statements have made our legal situation much worse." Hartwell looked around the table at people he had worked with for years. "So you would have preferred that I cover up the cover-up? That I let employees continue drinking poisoned water while we quietly tried to fix the problem? We would have preferred that you protect the shareholders who have invested in this company," Foster replied coldly. "Your first responsibility is to us, not to the employees." "I disagree. My first responsibility is to do what's right." The board voted 6-1 to demand Hartwell's resignation. Only one member, elderly investor James Chen, supported Hartwell's handling of the crisis. "If Robert hadn't exposed this cover-up, we would all be facing criminal charges as accessories," Chen argued. "He saved us from being part of a conspiracy." But the other board members were not convinced. They gave Hartwell 24 hours to resign voluntarily or face being fired. That evening, Hartwell met with Maria and Miguel Santos at a small coffee shop away from the media attention. He looked exhausted and defeated. "I wanted you to hear this from me first," Hartwell told them. "The board is forcing me to resign. They blame me for the company's problems." Maria was shocked. "But you're the one who stopped the cover-up. You're the one who told the truth and took responsibility. They think I should have handled it differently. They think I should have protected the company's profits instead of protecting the employees." Miguel shook his head sadly. "So they learned nothing from what happened." "What will happen to the company now?" Maria asked. "The board will bring in a new CEO who will probably try to declare bankruptcy and walk away from the medical expenses and legal settlements. They'll try to start over with a new name and pretend this never happened." Maria felt angry and betrayed. After everything they had been through, after all the evidence they had gathered and the risks they had taken, The company was going to abandon its responsibilities. Mr. Hartwell, what about Carlos's medical treatment? What about all the other employees who are sick? I don't know, Maria. The new leadership might not honor the promises I made. That night, Maria made another decision that surprised everyone. She called a second press conference, this time to expose what was happening with the board of directors. The same corporate culture that created the water contamination cover-up is now trying to cover up their responsibility to the victims, Maria announced to a room full of reporters. The board of directors is forcing out the one executive who did the right thing, and they're planning to abandon the employees who were poisoned. Maria's second press conference created an even bigger storm than the first. Public opinion turned strongly against Meridian Tech's board of directors. Protesters gathered outside the company building with signs reading, "Justice for water victims," and "Corporate greed kills." The negative publicity reached Congress, where Senator Elizabeth Warren announced that she would personally oversee hearings into the Meridian Tech scandal. "This case represents everything that's wrong with corporate America," Senator Warren said in a statement. "Executives poison their own employees, cover it up for months, and then try to escape responsibility when they get caught. This ends now." Meanwhile, the employees who had been poisoned by the contaminated water organized their own response. Led by Jennifer Martinez, a marketing manager who had developed liver problems from the exposure, they formed a group called Meridian Justice Coalition. "We're not going to let the company abandon us," Martinez told reporters. "These board members got rich from our hard work, and now they want to disappear when we need medical care." The coalition hired lawyers and filed a class action lawsuit demanding that the board members be held personally liable for the medical expenses and damages. They also organized a social media campaign that put faces and stories to the contamination victims. Carlos Santos became one of the most visible faces of the campaign. Even though he was only 12 years old, he agreed to be interviewed about his kidney damage and the lifelong medical treatment he would need. "I didn't do anything wrong," Carlos said during a television interview. "I was just a kid drinking water at my sister's work. Now the doctors say I might need a new kidney someday. But the people who poisoned the water don't want to pay for my medicine." The interview with Carlos was shared millions of times online and became a rallying cry for corporate accountability advocates across the country. Under intense public pressure, 3 of the board members resigned rather than face continued scrutiny. The remaining board members, led by Margaret Foster, tried to salvage the situation by offering a settlement that would pay for some medical expenses, but would not admit legal responsibility. The Meridian Justice Coalition rejected the settlement offer. "They're trying to buy our silence with a fraction of what we deserve," Martinez explained. "We want full medical coverage for life, compensation for our suffering, and a guarantee that this never happens again." The legal battle intensified when federal prosecutors announced that they were considering criminal charges against the board members for their handling of the crisis after the contamination was discovered. The board's decision to prioritize profits over employee health even after learning about the contamination may constitute criminal negligence, announced U.S. Attorney Sarah Kim during a press conference. 2 weeks later, the FBI raided the Odziu offices and homes of all remaining board members, seizing financial records and communications. The investigation revealed that the board had discussed plans to declare bankruptcy specifically to avoid paying medical expenses to contaminated employees. They knew people were sick, and they planned to abandon them, Agent Park told Maria during one of their meetings. "We have emails and recorded phone calls proving that they put money ahead of human lives." The criminal investigation created a split within the board. James Chen, the elderly board member who had supported Hartwell, agreed to cooperate with prosecutors in exchange for immunity. His testimony revealed the full extent of the board's callousness. Foster actually said that the sick employees were acceptable losses, Chen testified. She said it was better to lose a few workers than to bankrupt the company. Margaret Foster and 2 other board members were arrested on charges of conspiracy, fraud, and criminal negligence. The remaining board members resigned and agreed to cooperate with the investigation. With the board in chaos, the company's employees called for Robert Hartwell to return as CEO. More than 600 employees signed a petition supporting his reinstatement. Mr. Hartwell was the only executive who told the truth and tried to help us, the petition stated. He should be leading the company, not the people who tried to cover up their crimes. The employee petition gained support from customers, suppliers, and even some investors who had lost money in the scandal. A group of ethical investment funds offered to buy out the remaining hostile board members and install Hartwell as CEO, with a mandate to prioritize employee welfare over profits. But Hartwell was reluctant to return. The stress of the crisis had taken a toll on his health and his family. His wife had been harassed by reporters, and his teenage children had been bullied at school because of their father's connection to the contamination scandal. "I don't know if I have the strength to rebuild this company," Hartwell told Maria during a private meeting. Maybe it would be better to let Meridian Tech die and start over with something new. 6 months after the contamination scandal broke, Meridian Tech looked completely different from the company that had poisoned its own employees. The transformation was visible from the moment visitors entered the building. Where there had once been a simple reception desk, there was now a wall of transparency featuring real-time displays of all safety test results, environmental monitoring data, and employee health statistics. Every visitor could see exactly what chemicals were used in the building, when they were last tested, and whether any safety concerns had been reported. "We want everyone to know that we have nothing to hide," explained Maria Santos as she gave a tour to a group of business students from the local university. At 20 years old, Maria had become one of the youngest corporate executives in the city, and her story was studied in business ethics classes around the country. "Ms. Santos," asked one of the students, "wasn't it scary to speak up against such powerful people?" "It was terrifying," Maria admitted. "But what scared me more was the thought that my little brother and hundreds of other people might get sick or die if I stayed quiet. Sometimes being scared means you're doing something important." The students were visiting as part of a new program that Meridian Tech had created to teach business ethics to young people. The company had become a model for corporate responsibility, and executives from other companies regularly visited to learn about their practices. The most dramatic change at Meridian Tech was the new governance structure that Robert Hartwell had implemented. The board of directors now included 3 employee representatives, 2 community advocates, and an environmental scientist, in addition to traditional business leaders. Every major decision had to be approved by both the business board and the employee council. "We learned that when you only listen to investors, you make decisions that hurt everyone else," Hartwell explained during the student tour. "Now we listen to all our stakeholders before making important choices." Miguel Santos had thrived in his new role as Director of Facilities Safety. His deep knowledge of the building's operations, combined with formal safety training the company had provided, made him one of the most effective safety officers in the industry. "Mr. Santos," one student asked, "how did you learn so much about building safety?" "By paying attention for 15 years, Miguel replied with a smile. "Janitors see everything. We know when pipes leak, when air systems don't work right, when chemicals smell wrong. The problem was that nobody listened to us before." The new Meridian Tech had systems in place to ensure that every employee's safety concerns were heard and investigated. Miguel's team included former janitors, maintenance workers, and other employees who had previously been ignored by management. The company had also completely redesigned its approach to chemical storage and waste disposal. Instead of trying to save money by cutting corners, Meridian Tech now used the safest and most expensive disposal methods available. They had installed real-time monitoring systems that would immediately detect any leaks or contamination. "Safety is not a cost," Hartwell told the students. "It's an investment in our people and our future." The financial results supported his philosophy. Despite spending significantly more money on safety and environmental protection, Meridian Tech was more profitable than ever before. The company had attracted new customers who specifically wanted to work with an ethical business and employee. Productivity had increased dramatically. "When people trust their employer to keep them safe, they work harder and better," explained Dr. Sarah Kim, who had been promoted to Chief People Officer. "We have almost no employee turnover now, which saves us millions of dollars in recruiting and training costs." The medical outcomes for contamination victims had also been better than expected. Carlos Santos, now 13 years old, had shown significant improvement in his kidney function after receiving cutting-edge treatment funded by the company's victim compensation program. "The doctors say I might not need a kidney transplant after all," Carlos told the visiting students. "The new medicines are working really well." Carlos had become something of a celebrity in his own right, speaking at schools and conferences about the importance of environmental protection and corporate responsibility. Despite his young age, he had a powerful ability to explain complex issues in simple terms. "Companies should not be allowed to make people sick to save money," he said during his presentation to the students. "If a company can't afford to operate safely, then it should not operate at all." The legal aftermath of the scandal had sent a strong message to corporate America. Thomas Morrison and David Chen had both been sentenced to federal prison for their roles in the cover-up and bribery scheme. Morrison received 12 years while Chen got 8 years. The board members who had tried to abandon the contamination victims were also sentenced to prison terms ranging from 3 to 7 years. This case proves that corporate executives cannot hide behind their companies when they commit crimes, said U.S. Attorney Sarah Kim after the sentencing. "When you put profits ahead of people's lives, you will face personal consequences." The criminal convictions had made it easier to hold other companies accountable for similar violations. Prosecutors across the country were using the Meridian Tech precedent to pursue cases against executives who covered up safety problems or environmental hazards. But perhaps the most important change was cultural. The story of Maria Santos and her family had inspired thousands of other workers to speak up about safety problems in their own workplaces. Whistleblower reports to government agencies had increased by 300% in the year following Maria's press conference. "Maria showed people that ordinary workers can take on powerful corporations and win," said Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a business ethics professor who had written a book about the Meridian Tech case. "Her courage gave other people permission to be brave." Maria had used her newfound influence to create a national network of employee advocates. The Maria Santos Foundation provided legal support and financial assistance to workers who reported safety violations or corporate wrongdoing. The foundation had already helped expose contamination problems at 12 other companies. "I never expected to become an activist," Maria told the visiting students. "I just wanted to finish college and get a good job. But sometimes life takes you in directions you never planned." Maria was indeed finishing college, studying business and environmental law while working at Meridian Tech. She planned to become a lawyer, specializing in corporate accountability and worker protection. "My goal is to make sure that no other family has to go through what we went through," she explained. "Every worker deserves a safe workplace, and every company should be held accountable for protecting their employees." The transformation of Meridian Tech had also inspired changes in government policy. Congress had passed the Worker Safety Transparency Act, which required companies to immediately report any safety violations or environmental hazards to employees and the public. The law also created stronger protections for whistleblowers and increased penalties for executives who covered up safety problems. The Meridian Tech case showed us that our existing laws were not strong enough to protect workers, said Senator Elizabeth Warren, who had led the congressional investigation. "The new law ensures that workers have the information they need to protect themselves and their families." As the student tour concluded, Maria brought the group to the company's memorial garden, which honored employees who had been harmed by the water contamination. The garden featured a fountain with clean, tested water and plaques remembering the victims. "We built this garden to make sure we never forget what happened here," Maria explained. "It reminds us every day that our choices have consequences for real people with real families." One of the plaques bore a simple inscription: "In memory of trust broken and rebuilt, in honor of courage found in unexpected places, in hope of a future where safety comes first." Robert Hartwell joined the group at the memorial garden. At 52, he looked older than he had before the crisis, but also more at peace with himself and his role as a business leader. "Students, I want you to understand something important," Hartwell said. 5 years ago, I thought being a successful CEO meant maximizing profits and keeping shareholders happy. I learned that real success means creating value for everyone who depends on your company: employees, customers, communities, and the environment." "Mr. Hartwell," asked one student, Do you ever regret handling the crisis the way you did? You could have saved a lot of money and avoided a lot of problems by covering it up better. Hartwell looked at Maria and Miguel, who were standing nearby, and then at the memorial plaques honoring the contamination victims. I regret that the contamination happened at all, he said. I regret that I didn't know about it sooner. I regret that people got hurt on my watch. But I don't regret telling the truth and taking responsibility. That was the only choice I could live with. As the students prepared to leave, Maria reflected on how much her life had changed since that night when she had whispered, "Don't drink the water," to a CEO she had never met before. She had gone from being a part-time cleaning woman to being a nationally recognized advocate for worker rights.